Hello, I'm Mel Byron and welcome back to Old Movies Saved My Life. Well, it's episode 2 already. How time flies. And thank you all very much to those of you who gave me some really positive feedback on the first episode with my good friend David Ferguson. Today I shall be welcoming another friend, Lisanne Fridsma, fellow comedian. We'll be discussing one of the great musicals of all time. And this week, my guest is my friend and fellow comedian Lisanne Fridsma, and we've been watching 42nd Street, the daddy of all backstage musicals. So welcome, Lisanne.
Thank you.
After much discussion about which film we were going to watch, we plumped for 42nd Street. A, because you said you like musicals, and secondly, because you'd seen the stage show but not the film, so I thought it would be quite interesting to have a look at the film. So, quick overall impressions of the film?
I really liked it. It was much more technical advanced than I thought it would be.
1932.
Yeah, I mean, there was pretty cool, like, stage stuff in there. The train that opened up and all the stuff sinking in and out of the stage. But I love that the women had proper legs. That was the best thing about it. Oh my God, because in the stage version, it was all these really, really skinny women that had, like, a thigh gap the size of China.
That you could have got that train through.
And these were just women with proper good legs.
Yeah, they were proper. I mean, these were not skinny girls by any means. They weren't fat, but they were not skinny girls, and that was very much, I think, the fashion of the time. And
I'm born in the wrong age.
Right, but there are. I mean, that is probably one of the first. That's the first really famous musical. But there's the very first sound musical is called Broadway Melody of 1929, and it was described as having chorus girls who'd spent more time at the dinner table than in the rehearsal. I mean, they were proper chunky. But yeah, they have proper legs. Because to be a dancer of that magnitude, you have to have strong legs. You can't just have skinny, weedy little legs. I mean, this tap dancing malarkey.
Well, there was really... The fainting was good, though. These women were not... They had strong legs, but they were still damsels in distress.
Yes. So just for those who haven't seen it, so the plot roughly is they're putting on a musical, and the musical has been financed by this rich, let's call him an older gentleman, because or creep. We'll come to that in a moment. And because his lady friend is going to be the star, and that's the deal. As long as she's in it, he will finance it. And of course, there are various chorus people in the chorus, and there's a couple of chorus girls whose stories we follow, and that's basically it until the point that we discover that the leading lady actually has a real boyfriend and doesn't really want to be with the older guy, and things start to unravel. But this is a backstage musical, and it's time for one of the chorus girls to step up to the plate, which of course she does magnificently. It's that film where the man says, you're going out there a nobody, but you're coming back a star. Actually, whilst he bullies her, just before she goes in, I have to say, there's two things that disturb me about the film. The extent of the workplace bullying, because that director is horrible. I couldn't work for him. He shouts at everybody all the time. I found him quite disturbing.
I went to theatre school, and sometimes when we had projects, there would be people like this, and I'm just like, why are you stressing this much? I know you're passionate about your play, but this is not going to make anyone better by putting so much pressure, like, oh, there's 200 people's jobs counting on you. Now go out and give a good, proper performance.
No pressure. So things like that still go on now, you think?
Oh, yes. I got rejected by one particular theatre school I auditioned in the Netherlands. And I had a sense that the girls that went through were all the pretty blah, blah, blah. Oh. But I thought maybe that's just me being really sour for not getting into this school. And then last year, just story after story came out that, like, teachers well into their 50s and 60s were dating 18-year-olds. And they all sort of brought it as, oh, but everyone knew about it. It's part of the arts. And it matures the students and that kind of bullshit. So when I saw this, I'm like, yeah, that's still how it is.
Oh God!
But it's all a big scandal now in the Netherlands, and it is changing. I really genuinely believe it is changing. But yeah, oh my God.
Oh my word! Well, if 42nd Street is to be believed, it was just part of life in the 1930s during the this era.
There is a lot of romance going on in that theater world about certain elements that are part of being an artiste and stuff like that. So I know a lot of it is made more dramatic in a movie, but I know there's people that are in it for the drama that are just there were a few girls in my theater class that were like that. They really lived on like, oh, this guy is so into this and that. Yeah, I love this movie. It's just nice.
It's nice, it's fun, but of course then, as you also mentioned, there's the creepy guy. The first time we saw the older guy, the angel, what was the word you shouted out? Weinstein. 85 years old that film is, by the way.
This movie is a prophecy. The great thing about it is that it's now coming out and it's coming into light, and they can't keep getting away with it. But what I loved in this movie, that there's a lot of guys, not only all the creepy Weinstein guys, but there's a lot of guys that are just not aware of consent and respecting boundaries and stuff. And I know it's a different time, but some of these women in this movie just slap them right in the face and just like, no, bugger up. I'm like, good on you.
Oh, is that in the party scene where the guys just keep hitting on the girls? And yeah, because hey, why not? We're here, you're girls, we're guys. Let's do this, yes. And
I enjoyed it that is women standing up for themselves. It's like, good on you, just slap.
Feisty women. My favourite movies, almost all, are about feisty women standing up for themselves. And you think that in the 1930s there weren't many of them, but that's not true. And certainly in this film, the women are the centre, really. Without the women, there is no show. It might be the men making it happen, but without the women, so it's men producing, directing, writing, but without the women, there's no show. And there's oodles of women in that show, as we saw in the beautiful technical scenes at the end, directed by Busby Berkeley.
There's more women than would fit on the stage.
Yeah. That was a bigger stage than any New York theatre actually has. There's a follow-up film to 42nd Street called Footlight Parade, and there's an amazing song sequence in it called By a Waterfall. And the waterfall and the chorus go... I mean, there is no theatre in the world that could accommodate an actual waterfall and hundreds and hundreds of beautiful young women sitting around it. And we are supposed to believe that that is happening on a stage. And we believe it, because we have to suspend disbelief. But it's a little bit similar here, although by Footlight Parade they'd obviously got bigger and better and more ambitious. But yeah, with the train that opens up and...
Oh my God, the train bit, the singing along on the ooze was so good.
Let's all shuffle off to Buffalo. That is one of my favourite songs. I mean, the songs in that film are great. I think they stand the test of time. But you were saying that in the musical there are actually more songs.
Yeah, and songs are used in different contexts. Mm-hmm. The version I've seen is not the one that's currently on the West End. I saw it in the Netherlands, I think, maybe 14, 15 years ago. Because I was well into musicals. I just was the nerd in school that went to all of them and had like all the programs at home and knew all the names of all the actors in it.
Oh wow, so all the modern musicals, so things like Lloyd Webber and stuff like that.
Yeah, and all of those. And so when they have 42nd Street in the Netherlands, I went to see that one as well. But here the songs are really, in the movie, they're only in the play that they're putting on. And in the musical version on the stage, they also have some of the themes from the stage play coming back into relationships
so
in the backstage part.
Right.
Yeah, so there's more overlap. Because you can't only have... Because I think in the first hour there wasn't that much music. It was all in the end. And if you have a stage musical, it has to be all the way through.
Absolutely. And let's be frank. In this film, they're putting on a musical called Pretty Lady. If you ask me what the plot of Pretty Lady is, I cannot fathom it from the songs that we saw. I don't know what the plot
I think she just has to be pretty, marry this guy, shuffle off to Buffalo, And then at the end, I don't know what the hell happened, but everyone danced with like a skyscraper, moved away, then the happy couple was inside, and the curtain came down with asbestos.
Yes, you were quite disturbed by the I have no idea. I'm guessing it's because there were asbestos, because asbestos is fireproof.
But also, as the end of the plot of this Pretty Lady musical, I didn't get it.
The last thing you see is the word asbestos.
And now, enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks so much for coming.
And of course, people who work regularly in those theatres could possibly have suffered from asbestosis. I have no idea what that is. I assume it's because, well, I'm going to look that up now. I assume it's because asbestos is fireproof, and you remember they have the safety curtain. In the old days when they had proper limelight, which was light...
it was candles.
It was actually hazardous, and I think theatres did burn down because of it. So I'm guessing asbestos was put in to stop that.
I just thought it was such a strange ending to what would have been the plot of Pretty Lady.
And whatever the plot of Pretty... But did you notice the guy she was with at the end of Pretty Lady is not the one she married in the story?
Well, apparently, this is what my mind made up of it. He shuffled off with someone else in Buffalo, and she ended up with this guy, which she sort of also flirted with off stage.
Yeah, she did. So the stories overlapping. So clearly... they're going to go off and have a happy ending in real life in the film, the actors, yes. And what did you think of the performers? I mean, the film is full of people nobody has ever heard of these days. I think the only person anybody's heard of who's in that film is Ginger Rogers. But the rest of the actors are totally forgotten, which is a shame, I think, to some degree.
I was just thinking during the movie, like everyone that I'm seeing now is probably dead.
Yeah, there's nobody in that film still alive. Nobody named in that film. Ginger Rogers died in the mid-90s, 95, something like that. Ruby Keeler died. Dick Powell, who played the young boy, his career trajectory is very interesting and to some degree sad because he went from being a song dance man to playing hard-boiled detectives to becoming a director. And most famously, he directed a film called The Conqueror, which they shot on location in Utah, where they had trialed a nuclear bomb. And about half the people on that film died of cancer after some years, including Dick Powell himself.
Oh,
he was only I don't think he was 60 when he died. And about maybe less than 10 years after that film was made, he died of cancer. John Wayne, who was the leading man, died of cancer. Susan Hayward, the leading woman. So he died relatively young. The rest of them, by the 90s, they'd all shuffled off, not to Buffalo. Somewhere,
Who knows? They might be in Buffalo.
Yes, if Buffalo is heaven. So it's quite sad because Dick Powell, the guy who died, he was an enormously talented man. Ginger Rogers, obviously. Ruby Keeler, who plays Peggy, who takes over the role from Bebe Daniels. People are in two camps about her. How could she have become a big star with that weedy little voice? And other people think, but she was enormously talented. And I don't know, I sit somewhere in between, I think. I think she did have a very weedy voice. And in the story, of all the people that were in it, why would you pick her as being the one who could carry the show? You know, to me, it didn't seem quite believable necessarily. That she
the choice came a bit out of the blue. That is... Because they went for the other one.
Ginger Rogers,
and then they were like, oh no, but she is great, so I'm going to let her do it. And I was like, but where in the movie did she prove that she was so excellent?
Exactly.
There wasn't a scene where we all, out of nowhere, heard her belt out. This wonderful...
Because she didn't belt, because she sounded like that really sweet.
Well, maybe that was more of the taste of the era.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the belting is very post-90s. People are really impressed if you can ad-lib now. But sometimes ad-libs are just annoying.
Yes. And the belting kind of singing, I think that came sort of after the war in those musicals that you mentioned liking West Side Story. If you look at some of the 50s musicals, singers like Howard Keel, my God, they really put those songs across. But they didn't do that, I think, in the 30s. And even Ruby Keeler herself in later life apparently watched her own films and went, oh my God, did I actually really sound like that? I think she had some talent, but she made a few films and then she was done. I think she was a fashion for a very short period of time. But I think, there are some really talented people in that film, and I think it's a shame that people know 42nd Street, but not them. But that's one of my bugbears about old movies. I love old movies, is that, these people were amazing and megastars, and people go, who?
Also with people like from the 60s now, for me, I wouldn't know loads of them. Bad thing is, like, I've seen loads and loads of movies, and unless I've seen someone in multiple movies, I won't know who they are.
Register them.
Unless they're, like, super excellent or something. Because I'm more interested in the story than... sort of, maybe I'm getting more into it now, like, who's this person, who's that. But for years, I've just been really interested in the stories particularly. And it felt really sort of high school girlish to me to be like, you had this whole thing about the Cumberbitches and the other people. And I'm just like, this guy is an actor, and he's acting because he wants to tell stories. It's not about him. But then on the other hand, I know that acting can be a sort of very ego-relating thing. But now I'm getting more into, because I go to the cinema loads, and like, oh, who is this person? Who's directed it? But I think that's just sort of a slight... Maybe that's a thing that comes with age, or finding a passion in it.
Because I find when I want to look at, especially old movies, I mean, of which I have seen many, many thousands, sometimes if I might just go, oh, this actor or actress, I don't really know much about them. And I'll start to watch one or two films, and before I know it, I start to watch all of it. Because for me, that's a way of gathering new films that I haven't seen before. Okay, I'll just... Google this actor or actress and start watching all of their films, and before I know, I'm hooked on them, and then I have to go and find somebody else, and then watching their films, you find an actor or actress in that and think, oh, who's that? That's interesting. Oh, I'm going to watch that. And so for me, that's kind of, rather than just going, I love all old movies, although I do love most old movies, except some westerns and some war films. But again, that's because they don't have feisty women in them usually. So that's why I don't watch a lot of westerns and war films. And with 42nd Street, obviously, if you were to follow the trajectory of that, you'd probably want to... This is for anybody who is interested. Well, look at other Warner Brothers musicals of the 30s, because they made the best musicals. That was their thing from 42nd Street up to the mid-30s. That they made all these huge cast musicals with Busby Berkeley, who was a famous director, doing all those technical things with hundreds of girls on wheelie things. So that was very technical, wasn't it? Wheelie things. You'll know what I mean if you watch the film. So that would, for me, that would be, okay, now I'd watch these, and that's, in fact, what I did was 42nd Street, and what more is the Footlight Parade, and there's this, and there's this, and there's loads of them, and they're great fun. They're not highbrow, just good entertainment for an evening, when perhaps you've been busy at a comedy afternoon, for example. And this, Lisanne, is your chance to plug your shows. so this is obviously, this podcast is also about plugging my show. Yes, I have a show called All Movies Saved My Life coming up at Edinburgh. And so Lisanne, tell me about what's going on in your comedy life.
Well, in my comedy life, you've been a part of it today.
I know, it was great.
We co-emceed my monthly gig. It's called A Piece of Cake. It's every last Sunday of the month in the Bill Murray in Angel. And it's an afternoon gig where I bake everyone cakes.
And they are amazing cakes, ladies and gentlemen. They are amazing cakes. I highly recommend coming to Piece of Cake, not just for the cake, but also for the entertainment.
And Piece of Cake is coming to Edinburgh this year.
Yes, you're doing the full run.
Exciting.
That is exciting.
I'm going to be baking every day. Definitely, if you're in Edinburgh, come to that. And I'll also be doing there my first solo project.
And there might be dancing?
Well, I hope that there's dancing in it, because I'm obsessed with Charleston. But I have a teeny tiny stage, so that is going to be a challenge, because I don't want to kick anyone in the face.
Then you should do some Ruby Keeler tap dancing, because she stayed absolutely static for some of it. You've got 5 months to become an expert tap dancer like Ruby Keeler in 42nd Street.
I have to say, I already got the legs, so... That's
Because
half
you've got
the work.
strong legs. So we highly recommend. I think it's fair to say we highly recommend 42nd Street.
Yes, I loved it.
It's a great film. It is the original and best backstage musical. So do watch that, and do come, and if you're in London, last Sunday of every month, come and see Piece of Cake at the Bill Murray. And if you're in Edinburgh, you can see both of us. You can see you twice a day, at least.
Yeah.
So thank you very much to Lisanne for her time watching the film.
Thank you for having me.
It was an absolute pleasure, and we'll be back soon with another episode of Old Movies Save My Life.